really going to focus on parenting tools. So we're going to think about what are some of the things that you can do to make your lives a little bit easier and your connection with your kids a little bit easier. We're also going to talk a little bit about that relationship, so the connection between you and some strategies for talking to your kids. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McQuarrie, who's going to talk with us about some particular parenting tools. And feel free
Yes.
to jump right in.
So, when we think about kids and their challenging behaviors, we often think about all the list of things that we would like them to not be doing and things that we want them to decrease. And in order for us to see a decrease in some behaviors, we also have to see an increase in other behaviors. And so this is some very smart people, not me, came up with this nice acronym. And what we want to do is we want to use what's called the pride skills whenever we're interacting with our children to help increase those positive behaviors that we want to see more of. And it also helps to increase just the parent-child relationship and the positivity there, because you've probably experienced when you have a lot of challenging behaviors, you see the relationship really taking a hit too. And so it can be pretty exhausting. So I'm going to go through each of these one by one. So the first one is praise. So kids or anybody really loves praise. Like we need to be told that we're doing something well, and it feels really good. And it makes us actually want to do those things that we're praised for even more. So as simple as it can be, it's like, oh, great job putting your shoes on, or thanks for listening right away. And these are going to let your child know exactly what they're doing well. Kids hear a lot of critiques, a lot of instruction throughout the day. And so we want to add in and sprinkle in these praises. I've even heard the ratio of 10-1. So 10 praises for every critique or criticism. And that way you're adding more positivity into the language and your relationship with your child. And so one phrase that I've heard that I really like is water the seeds, not the weeds. So if we give too much attention to the weeds, we're going to grow those weeds. But if we give more attention to the seeds, we're going to get a lot more of that behavior we like. All right. The next one is reflect. So one of the kinds of behavior that we often want to see less of is inappropriate talk, maybe poor language, or just hurtful things that kids can say sometimes. And so in order to see a decrease in those things, we want to reflect and see an increase in appropriate talk. So anytime your child says something nice, like, wow, thanks, that was really nice, or repeating what they're saying. So like you can see an example. This one is geared more towards the younger children. So trying to repeat what they say in helping them expand their language and pronunciation. And it can also be really helpful for keeping children on track and focused at any age. So if someone says something, then you can repeat it, and you're showing them that you're listening, and you're keeping them focused on what they just said they were going to do. All right. The I stands for imitating appropriate play. So this one would be used when you're having special playtime or one-on-one time with your child. And what you want to do is if they're building, for younger kids, if they're building a really tall tower with Legos, you would want to be like, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to build a really tall tower with Legos too. Because imitation is the highest form of flattery we've heard before. And so it helps kids feel important. It helps them feel like you value what they're doing and that you think what they're doing is cool. And when they're doing something appropriate, we want to show them that they're doing something appropriate by imitating it and modeling that's good to be doing and keep doing. The D is for describe. So this is another great one that helps keep kids on track. So a kid might be sitting down doing their homework. You can go up to them, wow, awesome job doing your math homework, or you're staying seated at the table to complete your homework. And it might seem really simple, but that actually kind of alerts them to, oh, right, I am doing my homework and I'm going to keep doing my homework. I'm going to stay on task. I'm not going to get distracted by my phone. Same thing with like a way to kind of bring attention to if they do get distracted without being too critical is, oh, I see you're working on your homework and you have your phone next to you. And then that kind of brings their attention to, oh, maybe like, they have more ability to think through, maybe that's not the best place for my phone to be. And then if they don't make that connection, then you can go in with a statement of, do you want me to keep your phone while you're doing your homework so that you don't have to have that distraction right there? For younger kids, it also helps slow them down. Sometimes kids get so many ideas so quickly and they're doing something and then they're kind of bouncing around a playroom or such to one activity to the next. And so if you slow them down and you're describing, oh, you're playing with Play-Doh, you've got the green Play-Doh, the blue Play-Doh, then that kind of slows them down. They're like, yeah, I'm doing the Play-Doh. I got the Play-Doh. And they're not going to get distracted by the Legos across the room or any other toys. And then the E is enjoy. So kids can pick up on our moods, of course. And so during one-on-one time with our children, we want to make sure that we're showing them that we are interested in them and that we are enjoying the time with them. And they definitely will feel that. And so it also models how to interact appropriately with peers. And it brings up that warmth and that positivity in the relationship that sometimes takes a hit when you're dealing with a lot of challenging behaviors. So just simply stating like, wow, I have so much fun playing with you. And the pride skills, the praise, reflecting, imitating, describing, enjoying, all of those can be used all of the time. But one really magical thing you can do is set aside just 5 minutes a day with your child, no matter what age they are. Granted, teenagers, they might do some protesting, but it really is important to have some one-on-one time with each child every day, just to have that connection. And it doesn't have to be like a whole event, like, oh, we're going to go bowling. No, it can be literally just like 5 minutes of sitting at the kitchen table, doing something that they pick or they enjoy. And that can go such a long way to build that connection, because kids are more likely to listen if they're feeling connected to you and if they're feeling that positivity in the relationship.
And just to add to what Susanna's saying, for those with teenagers, I can't tell you how many times some of my clients' parents have said, like, but I keep inviting them and they keep saying no. And then my clients, the teens, will come in and they'll be like, even if I don't accept the invitation, like, it means a lot. Like, I know that they're there if I need them. So it may feel like it's hard to keep offering that kind of special time if you're getting shut down. But it can be nice to sort of say, like, is there something that you'd like to do? Or I'd love to spend a little bit of time with you. Can you let me know when would be good for you? Do you want to do that kind of in the morning or at night? Or if you're like, I'd like to do something fun with you this weekend, you might say, can you tell me when would be a good time for you this weekend? What would you like to do with me?
Yeah, and that's a huge part, is letting them pick the activity, because as parents, we're usually the ones guiding pretty much everything for them. And so if they feel some ownership over that activity or whatever that time is, then that can, go a long way. So these are the things to avoid, which we're not going to avoid all the time. These are we want to just lessen these. So we want to be very strategic about the criticism that we give. I like to give a criticism sandwich. So we're going to have a nice piece of bread that is a praise. Then we're going to have the meat be something that needs to change. And then another piece of bread that would be another praise. So Dr. Singer, thank you so much for advancing the slides tonight. One thing is I would like you to do it a little bit faster next time. Obviously joking. And then follow it with, I really enjoy presenting with you. So that way they feel that they're more likely to hear the criticism and want to change when you're sandwiching it. Also, criticism often doesn't tell the child what you want them to do. It just tells them what you don't want them to do, which I will get more into in a minute. Questions. So this is a tricky one because we want to ask our child questions. We want to know all the things that are happening. And sometimes bombarding a child with questions gets you nothing. Like, how was your day? What'd you do? Who'd you talk to? And you probably have heard, I don't know, or nothing. Yeah. And so it can be really frustrating as a parent because you want to be involved. So trying to be there, this is actually when that 5 minutes of special one-on-one time can be even more helpful, where you're going to get them telling you things spontaneously more so than just like getting lots of questions. It also can shift their, like when you start to guide the conversation, it shifts their attention to maybe something that they weren't thinking about, and that they had other things they wanted to tell you or whatnot. Again, this is not like cut out all questions to your child. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just, we want to be mindful of like how many questions we're asking. Commands. So again, commands are necessary. We have to, a command being like, please put your shoes on, or please do your homework, whatever. We have to give children commands. That's the nature of being a parent. But if we're giving too many commands back to back, it can feel really overwhelming and like kind of setting them up to not be able to do all of the things we're asking. So one trick with commands that can help reduce the likelihood of a power struggle is giving the rationale for the command before you give the command. So like, you want them to do their homework before dinner instead of after dinner. Say, last night we really struggled to get to homework done fast enough because and you were really tired. So tonight I'd like you to do your homework before dinner so that we're fresher and we have more time. Just an example. Or we're going to the grocery store, please put your shoes on, instead of we're going to the grocery store, or instead of please put your shoes on. And then they say, but why? What are we doing? If you've already told them the reason, you're not going to have that power struggle. Last one is trying to avoid the words no, don't, stop, quit, and not. So this is more geared towards the little children, because usually we'll see them doing something. We're like, no, don't, stop, please do it. Reason we want to reduce those is because it really doesn't tell the kid what you want them to be doing. So, don't color on the walls. Oh, okay. Well, where do you want me to color? Obviously the coloring book. Or don't hit your sister. Okay. Well, what do you use? Gentle hands. And giving more direction, one, helps reduce giving them ideas of things that you don't want them to do. Like if you say, don't hit your sister, maybe they weren't thinking about hitting their sister. Now it's in their mind. But yeah, so reducing these questions or these keywords can help increase some compliance too. I think there was a comment.
Someone mentioned,
okay,
a significant other will say, just do what I say, don't worry about the reason, because I said so. Dr. McQuarrie, what would you suggest for a parent who's like using that kind of language? Any ideas or tips you might have?
Yeah, I mean, so the because I said so is something, of course, we've all heard a bunch. And the tricky thing is it sets up a power dynamic that we already know is there, but we don't need to like emphasize it with the because I said so. So basically what you're doing is you're teaching your child to listen just because you're a power figure versus listening because there is a rationale and a good reason to listen. Does that make sense? Or was that, yeah. Okay. So problem behaviors. So that was the parts, those were the things we want to increase to try to increase good, appropriate behavior. Now let's jump into problem behaviors. So I like to categorize behaviors in 3 different ways. So that way we know how to respond to each one, because each behavior requires a different response. So the first one is noncompliance. Dr. Singer, what can you think of? What's an example of noncompliance that you've heard recently?
So I have some really wonderful kids in my family who are imaginative and playful and will never do things the first time that I ask them to. So if I ask to put on shoes, there is like a whole spaceship, you know, fantasy world that's being lived out. So I often will be like, it is time to get ready to put your shoes on. And my kid will just be like, I am an astronaut.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of that. Or it's like, I'm going to tease my younger sibling, even though I know I probably shouldn't.
Mhm. Yes. So good. So non-compliance, yes. Not listening. So when we tell a kid to do something that we need them to do, they explicitly don't do it. Or it could even be like there are chores that are allotted to this child and they never do them, that they're just not listening. They're never in compliance with their chores. Second one, disruptive behavior. So interruptions, dawdling, negotiations. These are so tricky. So you're on the phone or in your office on a call or something, and they come in and they're like, "But mom, I'm gonna need a snack. I need a snack." Or you tell them to put their shoes on, they're like, "I'm going," and they could literally be going backwards faster than they are walking to their shoes. Negotiations. So with older kids, often it'll be, "Well, I put on my shoes yesterday, so I'm not gonna." No, I'm just joking. That
Five
kids.
more minutes. Just give me five more
Yes,
minutes
that's a
before
good
I
one.
do the thing. Yep.
Exactly. Like, "Oh, I'll do my homework in 5 minutes. I'll take the trash out in 5 minutes." Yes, great example. And then the third one is dangerous and destructive behavior. So this is pretty clear: hurting people or objects, hitting, breaking things. That requires a specific set of responses. Okay, so first one, noncompliance response. So we want to, well, first of all, if a kid is not complying, there's a reason they're not complying. It could be that the alternate thing is much more exciting than what you're asking them to do. It could be that they have no motivation to do what you're asking them to do. Like they have no motivation to do their homework. They just don't want to do it. They don't care. So we need to find a way to increase their motivation to do those things that you're asking them to do. They don't care if the kitchen smells and the trash stays there forever. So we need to come up with a reason for them to comply. So praise is the best reward for any kid. It's free and you can never get too much of it. A kid will always feel good to hear praise. Even if they roll their eyes at it, keep saying it. And then sometimes we have to up the game and do some privileges. So maybe 5 minutes of extra screen time, special, working towards a special reward, like I don't know, it could be a tangible thing. And we want to do these things, we want to come up with a very specific plan and give that plan in advance so they know, okay, if when I take the trash out, then I get $1 towards my allowance, or that's just an example. So all right, next one is disruptive behavior. So this is the interrupting, the dawdling, the negotiations. Just 5 more minutes. What you want to do is just ignore. So unless it's dangerous or destructive, which we'll get to just in a minute. So often the negotiations are just an attempt to delay having to listen. So if you ignore it and just continue on with what you're requesting, that's going to show them that, okay, the negotiations are not really going to get you anywhere. So might as well stop trying that. The dawdling, just ignore and set a limit for, okay, if you continue to if you don't have your shoes on in 2 minutes, then blank, like you lose, or well, actually I would do it the other way. So I would say, like, if you get your shoes on in 2 minutes, then you get to pick the radio station when we get in the car, or you get to take a special stuffed animal in the car or whatever. We're talking about shoes a lot. Clearly shoes are an issue. And then then dangerous and destructive behavior. So we want to, anytime there is dangerous or destructive behavior, we need to implement an immediate consequence. So it could be for younger kids, it could be a timeout. For older kids, a removal of privilege. Honestly, screens go a long way. The more immediate the consequence is, like the closer the consequence is to the behavior that happened, the more effective it is. So if a kid hits their sibling, immediate timeout or immediate taking of the phone. And I always like to make sure that we put a limit on the removal of privileges to 1 day. So once, well, first of all, we want to make sure that each day is a fresh start for a kid. We don't want them punished for, we don't want to have their bike taken away for a whole month, because one, they're not going to remember why they had their bike taken away by the end of the month. Second of all, we want them to have a fresh start every day. Like, here's a new day. We're starting over. This is you have the opportunity to be a good listener, do what you're supposed to.
If you made a mistake at your job and your boss is like, I'm no longer going to pay your salary for the rest of the year, you probably wouldn't show up to work the next day. You're like, there's no reason for me to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've lost all your bargaining chips, basically. And then lastly, we want to make sure it's not something that they can earn back, because then all you're teaching them is how to negotiate later. So you can't hit your sister and then earn back your phone just for saying sorry. Saying sorry is a good thing. We want to praise that, but we don't want to then remove the consequence.
And if, as you're listening to Dr. McQuarrie talk, you're like, I need more of this, she's drawing from this amazing intervention that's a super evidence-based intervention called Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, PCIT. And it's super duper well researched, evidence-based, and I'm getting like kind of nerdy on you guys. Dr. McQuarrie, we have our emails on the last slide. Can people email you if they want to know more about PCIT or how to find a PCIT provider? Is that okay?
Absolutely. And there's also, I put a link in the slides too for the PCIT website that has all of these handouts and stuff too. So yeah, thanks for saying that.
So we're going to jump in with some tools for kind of understanding, why are your kids doing what they're doing? Sometimes I look at my kids and I'm like, what is happening? I don't know what's happening in your brain, but we're going to try to understand them a little bit. And also figure out, how do we help them to make some better choices? So with behavior, we think every behavior has a purpose, or the fancy way of saying this is like, every behavior has a function. There's a reason why we do what we do. And the question is, what is your child trying to do? So let's practice. Let's say you're in the supermarket and your kid is like, I want some candy, and you tell them no, and your child throws a tantrum. Feel free to type in the chat, what do you think your kid is trying to do? Why are they having a tantrum? Don't they know this is embarrassing? This is a public place. They're not supposed to do this. Why might a kid throw a tantrum after you've already told them no? Any guesses? And if you're like, I really don't know, that's okay too. They're very hungry. Maybe they're seeking attention. Yep. And feel free to keep typing for those who are still percolating on that. I've actually had this one happen. Well, the first one has happened to me personally, but I had a client tell me, my older brother or sister told me, stop acting like such a loser at school. Why might somebody tell this to their younger sibling? Ooh, I like for the first one, tangible. They want the candy. They don't understand why they can't have it. Good. Why would an older sibling tell the younger sibling, don't be a loser? Any thoughts? And our last question, ooh, the older sibling is embarrassed. They're being bullied at school. Yep. And then the last one here, why would a child lie to you about getting their homework done? What's the point of lying about that? Why not be honest? Ooh, I like this one about the older sibling, to stop the younger sibling from getting bullied. Nice, you guys are smart. They don't want to do their homework. Oh man, did you want to do every single assignment you were ever given? Some of them I was like, yes please. Some of them I was like, nope. The homework might be challenging. Absolutely. So here are some thoughts that I had, right? We throw a tantrum, we yell, we get loud, we throw things when we're trying to get something that we want. They may also be trying to say, Mom, when you told me I couldn't have candy, that was a very bad decision on your part. I wasn't happy about that. They're communicating their dissatisfaction. Now, maybe you're like, there's a better way to do this. Yes, we will talk about that. I like what you all were saying. The older sibling may have told the younger sibling, don't be a loser, because they're trying to protect them. Or maybe they're trying to protect their own reputation. We have kids who are kind of close together in age, and it's like, if you get picked on, is some of that am I gonna get picked on too? They're trying to protect somebody or something. We lie about things if we're worried that we're gonna get in trouble, if we're gonna, have a privilege taken away, or if you're like, I just don't want to do it, right? Have you ever told a significant other, oh yeah, I'll do that chore soon, and you're like, there's no way, I don't want to do this. I put off some chores, oh man. Then I'm like, we really just need to snake out the sink in the basement. And I'm like, nobody wants to do this. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get to it this weekend. I'm not getting it to this weekend. Does anyone have any other behaviors that their kids do and you're like, why are you doing this? If you're like, I just can use help decoding this child behavior, type it in the chat and we'll see if we can decode it together. I like to think about, maybe I'm a little tiny bit naive here, but I have this idea that everybody has good intentions. I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning thinking, identifying themselves as, the arch villain in their story. Everybody wants to have main character energy. We all think of ourselves as good people. Our intentions are good. What can be problematic sometimes is the impact that we're having, right? So the intention is what you're trying to do. The impact is what actually happens. And so part of this, when your kids do something and you're like, that didn't turn out well, recognizing what they're trying to do, right? Like that kid tantruming in the grocery store, you were trying to tell me something really important. What was it? Were you really hungry? Was that candy that you really wanted? And before we can say, you tantruming was bad, we might want to get at that good intention. Or if we're talking to that older sibling and like, you said something that was a little bit, surprising to your younger sibling, don't act like a loser. Tell me what you were trying to do there, because I know that you were trying to do something good. Tell me a little bit about that. Hitting us, refusing to sit down when we have, I tell the child to take a time out. So why do kids hit? They hit to get attention, to communicate, to satisfaction, because they don't have the other words or an alternative strategy, or maybe because there is something brewing internally that they just can't, they feel like, I can't control this. It just kind of bubbles out like, water boiling out over an unwatched pot. Part of this is giving them some alternatives here. So let's say you're like, okay, your intentions were good. You wanted to tell me something. You wanted my time. You wanted my attention. But the impact wasn't great, right? When you told your sister to stop acting like a loser, you were trying to protect her. Actually, you ended up hurting her. Really, she was upset about that for a couple of days. So we can give them the opportunity to have a do-over. We can say, I know you were trying to do something really good. Can you think about, is there any other way that you can get what you wanted? You wanted space from me, right? And I know that you raised your voice. You spoke to me in a way that felt kind of disrespectful. How else can you ask for it? Can you just tell me, Mom, I need some space right now, right? You wanted your brother to stop. What's another way to let him know? Okay, so he was pushing you. You pushed him back. That felt fair. Did he stop pushing you when you pushed him? Actually, then it got worse and you guys were like wrestling on the floor. How else can you get your brother to stop? You were upset with me. Is there a way that you can tell me, that you can let me know? Because I really want to hear that. Is there a way you can tell me you're upset other than slamming the door? Because like, we don't want to break the doors in our house, right? Rather than trying to sort of solve these problems for them, we can shift the responsibility back to them. So if they're upset about something, the first question I really want you to try asking them is, what have you already tried, right? You're upset with somebody, what have you tried? And what this gets at is, you've tried something, right? You're not just coming to me to like solve it. If you haven't tried something yet, go back and try something, and then we'll check in. It also gets at, what have you tried that was ineffective? You were really stressed about your test, and so you ignored it. Did that help you learn the material? Do you feel more equipped to face the test now? It didn't work. Okay, second question. What do you think you're going to try next? What this gets at is, I think you're smart. I think you're capable. I believe in you. And I also expect that you have some alternative ideas that you haven't yet tried. After you ask those first two questions, only then would I say, is there anything that I can do to help? If every time your child has a problem, you're like, here's what you need to do, what that may communicate to them is, I don't think you know what to do. And the only way to solve this is through me. Our kids are gonna have trouble when they're at school, when they're at friends' houses. One day when they're grown-ups, they're gonna have stressful or irritating things happen at work. And we're probably not gonna be sitting right next to them being like, okay, here's how you solve this. So we really want to encourage some of that independent problem solving. All right, I'm gonna switch gears and we're gonna talk a little bit about tools for relationships. What often happens when we get into a conflict, when things get really loud or really heated, it's actually that we're having two parallel conversations at the same time. Has anybody here ever gotten into a power struggle with their kids? Is this like a daily thing in my household? Yes, yes it is. Think to a moment when things got really tense. Yes, yeah, this happens. This happens to therapists too. Our kids are human beings and so are we. So let's think about, who can give me an example of a time when things were like kind of stressful or it felt like a conflict. It can be a disagreement, an argument, whatever. Somebody give me a really good example in the chat box. It could be something that happened today. It could be something that happened last week. Can anyone think of a conflict that arose between you and your kids that you can remember? And if you've never had a conflict with your kids, congratulations, that's amazing. I'll pull one from my experience. Anybody got a good one? I'm thinking of, we have a lot